Maybe you've started cycling because of COVID and you found that you actually like it. In this video, I'm going to talk about 3 simple beginner mistakes to avoid so you have a better cycling experience. Welcome back, Pathless Peddlers, and if you're new to the channel, if you're into the non-competitive side of cycling, gravel exploring, riding party pace, you have found your people, hit that subscribe button. So one of the first mistakes to avoid is running the wrong tire pressure. And oftentimes that means running your tire pressure a little too high. In all fairness, the bike industry and bike shops tend to be our worst enemies in terms of this mistake. You'll notice on tires there is a recommended PSI, and that actually has nothing to do with rolling performance or what tire pressure you should set your tires at. We have a whole half-hour video delving into this, but basically all that number is actually a safety rating number. Twice that printed number on your tire and your tire will explode, but it actually has no correlation to what you should actually be riding. Another reason a lot of people end up running tire pressures too high is because bike shop employees love to pump up those tires really full. So when you do that parking lot test ride, the bike feels fast and zippy because it transmits all those road vibrations that are a proxy for speed into the bike. Those tire pressures are great for feeling fast and especially for a parking lot test, but over a long ride, all those vibrations will really wear you down. So to find your perfect tire pressure, again, watch that video. It's super informative, but the cliff notes are, what you are looking for is the sensation of smooth. Smooth is fast. And when it starts to feel fast, that actually is an indicator that you've pumped your tires up too high because it's transmitting all those high frequency road vibrations. So be sure to dial in your tire pressure. It is one of the most important upgrades that you can do on your bike, because if you think about it, the tires are the only part of the bike that actually touch the ground. Another common beginner mistake is having incorrect seat height, whether that's too low or too high. And I totally get it. If you haven't been on a bike in a while, you want to be able to sit down and plant both your feet, which is perfectly fine when you're at a stoplight. But once you actually start pedaling, that means that your seat height's gonna be a little bit too low. That's kind of the equivalent of running around bow-legged. So you want to set up your seat height so in the furthest extended part of your pedal stroke, there's still a slight bend in your knee and you're not reaching for the pedal with your toes. On the other end of the spectrum, it's also really easy to set that seat height too high. A good indicator of this is if you start to feel some pain behind your knee socket. That usually means your saddle's too high and you should lower it down by a centimeter or so. Another good indicator of this is if when you're pedaling, you've got dancing hips. Your hips are just jiggling up and down, and usually that means that you are reaching for the pedal and your hips are going off balance trying to complete the stroke. So you actually want relatively quiet hips, so your pelvis isn't moving up and down like crazy. And I know it might feel a little bit low, but give it a try. The last beginner problem to avoid is actually pedaling too hard. I know this sounds counterintuitive. When I first got into cycling, I thought the whole point was to have all that resistance because it meant you were going fast and you were working out and cycling was exercise. But if you want to ride long distances all day on the bike, you actually want to make it as easy as you can on yourself. So if you're pedaling for short periods and your legs are already on fire, then it probably means you're pedaling in too hard of a gear and you should select an easier lower gear. So one good way to visualize this is imagine a bike ride is like going up to the 100th floor of a skyscraper and taking the stairs. There are 2 ways to get up there. You can either do it 4 steps at a time with big slow leaps. This would be the equivalent of using too high of a gear. Yes, it feels fast, it feels energetic, but the cadence is slower and it's not something you can sustain all the way up to the 100th floor just because you're doing a lot of work up front. The other way to get to the top of the skyscraper or to the end of your ride is to break up all that work in smaller steps. So going 1 step at a time pretty quickly. You'll find that you'll be able to cover as much ground with a lower gear. Granted, your legs have to spin a little bit faster, but what that means is you're distributing the work into smaller steps. You're working smarter and not harder. You're moving the load from primarily on your musculature to your cardiovascular system, and you basically want to maintain that balance. You don't want to spin so fast that you're running out of breath, but you don't want to pedal so hard that your legs are burning. It takes some trial and error, but generally that's what you're looking for. That sweet spot between using both your legs and your lungs. Hopefully these tips were helpful and will assist you in your cycling journey. If you guys have any other questions, leave those in the comments below. And as always, keep the supple side down.